Hi everybody, it's Make It month 3 and this month we're going to be talking about forming. So forming is just a fancy way of shaping. So we're going to be looking at different ways to shape metal, so turning flat sheet into something that's just a little bit more complex, building on the skills from the previous month. So there's lots and lots of different forming tools available, an overwhelming amount. So we're going to be talking about what I've got here in my studio, but I just want you to know that you don't need anywhere near this amount of tools. So we're also going to be focusing on the basics down the line, but I just wanted to show you a little bit of the breadth of the selection so that you can sort of get your head around what some of the stuff is, what it's used for, what it's called, and then you can make decisions about what you think you might find useful. But one of the first things we're going to look up is the most basic of forming tools, and they are pliers. Jeweller's pliers mustn't be confused with generic DIY pliers. Jeweller's pliers are completely smooth jawed, whereas the generic pliers you get in DIY shops, they often have grooves on the inside of the jaw, because the whole point with DIY pliers is you want to get a really good grip and get some purchase, so they have those rough grooves. And the point of jeweler's pliers is you want to be able to form your metal without sort of marring it too much, without leaving too many marks behind. So generic DIY pliers would always leave these horrible marks on your work, so make sure whatever pliers you get, they are lovely and smooth. But it doesn't mean that you have to use jewellery specific. I do have quite a lot of vintage pliers that I like to use now and again. But like I say, the important thing is just that they're smooth jawed. So if you find things, if you inherit things, rummage through garb boot sales, completely fine, but just make sure that they are smooth. You get lots of different types of pliers. So a couple of the most common ones are round nose. So these have cylindrical jaws all the way around, tend to be very skinny, and these are used for making little curves. So I grab that and bend it. There you go, little loop. And then one of the other most popular ones are flat nose. But just to complicate things, the important thing about things being flat is that the jaw is flat rather than curved, but you get actual flat nose pliers, which are quite wide, and snipe nose pliers, which are also flat, but they are tapered and skinny. They sometimes get called chain making pliers as well. But they both more or less do the same job, it's just this gets into smaller areas. Another jewellery must have tends to be a pair of half round pliers, or they also get called ring making pliers. You're going to find out this month, annoyingly, a lot of jewellery tools have multiple names, depending on who you're speaking to, where you're shopping, things like that. But these are called half round pliers because one of the jaws is curved and one of them is flat, so it's half round. And they get called ring making pliers because we normally use them to make ring bands. So for example, the curve will go on what will become the inside of my ring band, and I just turn, grip and turn, grip and turn, grip and turn. There you go, a bit wonky, but you can see the beginnings of a ring coming together. Half round or ring making pliers. And annoyingly, lots of pliers look very similar. So if we have a look at these from that side, one pair of these are the half round, or the ring making, and one pair is the flat. But they look very, very similar. So I always say to my students, before you pick up a pair of pliers and actually use them, have a really close look at the jaws. These are the classics, people get these confused all the time. So one pair is the snipe nose pliers, the ones that are flat but tapered, and one pair is the round nose pliers for making the little loops. So these two in particular do very different jobs, and if you pick them up thinking you've got one and you've actually got the other, you're probably going to end up sort of bending or marking your work in a way that you weren't intending to. So again, whenever you pick something up, have a proper look at it and check you've got the right pair for the job that you're trying to do. Most pliers close, I call it like a crocodile. Most pliers close on an angle. I don't know if you can see it, like a V-shaped angle. But you can also get what are called parallel pliers, so things like this. And the point of these is they close completely straight. So if I open these, support them a little bit, the gap at the back of the jaws remains even with the gap at the front of the jaws the entire time they're closing. So these can give you a little bit more control sometimes. Sometimes if you try and grip something with a pair of pliers that close on an angle, the thing you're trying to grip can sort of shoot out from the plier because it's closing closer at the back. Whereas, like I say, you get a bit more grip with these, but they are also quite a lot more expensive. So they're very good. And again, parallel pliers you can get in all different shapes. So you can get the flat ones, round ones, snipe nosed, all sorts. Any of the pliers with flat jaws can either be used for making sharper bends, such as that, or quite often they're just used to hold and support your work while you're trying to do something else, or as leverage where you're trying to sort of bend it around something else without leaving marks behind. Because the wider and flatter the surface area, the less likely it is to nibble into your wire or metal and leave marks behind. At the end of the day, steel tools are harder than, you know, your silver or your copper or your brass. So if you do manage to catch them at an angle or squeeze really hard, they will leave marks. You can get pliers with nylon jaws that some people really like, or one of the traditional ways of doing it is just wrap a little bit of masking tape around the jaws if you're worried and you just want that extra little buffer so it's less likely to mark, or just give things a good file and sand after. Like with most things these days, you can now get all these specialist pliers. So these ones are ring making pliers again, but it's supposed to just be a little bit easier to make your bend. So the reason I have these is because they're quite good for anybody that suffers with dexterity problems. They can be a little bit easier to hold and sort of manipulate the wire with, but they're considerably more expensive than sort of traditional ring making pliers. And you can also buy pliers for making bails, so the sort of little curvy bits that you can put chain through on your jewellery. And these are quite good for making jump loops, so for wrapping bits of wire around to make those little loops that we looked at the last couple of months. But again, specialist, cost more money, you don't need them, but they can be useful. And lastly, with your pliers, the one thing that you need to be so careful of is you don't accidentally pick up a pair of cutters. So you've got the little wire or flush cutters and the snips, and use those to hold your work. I've seen it a million times where people pick them up, go to grip onto their work, and you end up chopping through it without meaning to. And it's horrible when that happens, especially if it's a piece that you've been working on for a while. So it just comes back to, whenever you pick up a pair of pliers, make sure you are actually looking at them properly. Look at the jaws and make sure they are what you think they are when you pick them up, so that we don't have any accidents. So next up in the popular formers, we have these bad boys. So this is, I can't even get it all in shot. This is a ring mandrel. And again, just to be annoying and confusing, they go by different names. So again, depending on where you're looking to buy it, sometimes they get called triplets or formers. Now, former is the generic term, so sometimes they do get listed under that. And then each tool has a specific name. I would always call this a mandrel, and specifically a ring mandrel, because it's the right size for making ring bands. My understanding is, with terms like triplet, is if something is designed that's tapered, and the point of its use is to stretch or make something bigger, then it is a triplet. If it's just for generic forming around, it is a mandrel. But like I say, the terms tend to be interchangeable, so just watch out for that. If you're looking to buy a mandrel, don't get them confused with ring sizers. So I don't have a ring sizer, but quite often they look very similar, but they might be made out of something like aluminium or plastic, and they tend to have the ring sizers or letters notched down them. If they're made from a soft material, especially the aluminium ones, they tend to be hollow, and you start hammering and forming on them, they're just going to sort of collapse and you know, mark and misform. So it has to be a nice solid thing that is made for forming around. And just to confuse things even further, I do have one or two where the ring sizes are etched on them, because students were always asking for them, but they're proper solid steel ones, not the little sizers. I don't normally use the ones with the sizing etched on them, because those little etch marks could mark the inside of your ring bands when you're forming, so I would normally suggest a nice plain ring mandrel. And again, ring mandrels come in all different shapes. So this one here is an oval one. This is one that I've had since university. I very rarely use it, but I think I bought it on a whim, used it a little bit. This was when I was trying to make a square ring and I didn't check the sizing. So this I would refer to as a triplet, and it's more for forming things like square bezels around, or if you want to make little, you know, square earrings or something like that. So that's that. And then we have an earring mandrel. So it's just like the ring mandrel, but it starts smaller and it ends bigger. So I quite often use this for making ear hoops, or if you're doing chains. Basically, a former can be used to form anything as long as it's the right shape for what you want to form. Over this side of the studio, I've got my two bangle or bracelet mandrels. Now, I don't use these ones at the minute because unfortunately they got damaged the other week, and my good ones are at the folk house, but I thought I'd show them to you anyway. So one of them, this one, is oval, and this one is round. So quite often the oval one you would make cuffs on, cuff shaped things, or you can make bracelets as well. The round one tends to be more bangle shapes, so solid things that sort of go all the way around. This is a stepped one, but you can get round ones where they're just a normal taper, like this one. A lot of the time they stop quite small, so a top tip is lots of people use things like round wooden chair legs, or in America they use baseball bats for sort of forming their bangles onto. And then this bad boy is my bust former. So again, I've had this since university, and this is really good if you're making sort of solid necklaces, or sometimes they get called torques, where you need to form the metal so it sits around a collarbone. And then here we have my anvil. So this is my granddad's anvil. Normally lives in my garden because I don't have room for it in here. But again, the horn on the front can be used for forming things over or around. The sharp edges can be used to sort of push wire over if you're trying to form it and fold it in half or make right angles. But again, that in particular is quite specialist. The one thing people use all the time is the ring mandrel. Over here we have a doming block, or once again, annoyingly it goes by other names, so a dapping block. So I would always call this a doming block, and these would be doming punches, but depending again where you're shopping, it could be a dapping block, dapping punches, but it's the same tool. Ooh. And what it is normally a cube, or sometimes it's a flat thing, and it's got domed recesses of different sizes in it, and then you would pop your metal in and you would choose the punch that was more or less the right size for it and hammer it, and you would get a nice curve on your metal, such as this. So a curve where everything's curving in the same direction is called synclastic. That's a synclastic dome, as are these. Doming blocks and punches can range in price by a considerable amount. One of the things that affects the price is these come in a whole range of materials, so you can get wooden ones, plastic ones, brass ones, and steel. Any of the other materials, like the brass and the plastic and wood, will pick up marks quite quickly, and those marks could then transfer onto your piece, onto your jewellery. The downside of using steel is it can pick up rust. So these I've just pulled out of, they've been in storage for a while. But a quick way of keeping your tools rust free or cleaning rust off them is to spray a bit of oil on them, such as WD-40 or similar. Take some wire wool and give them a quick scrub. This wire wool is nice and fine. and it's starting to come off nicely. This is an example of a wooden doming block, and you can sort of see here some of those marks that it's picked up. But the reason I like this one is it comes with lots of different shapes that you can use, and there again there's the marks. I always say to people, it's up to you sort of what material you want to work with, but what I think is quite important is having a punch that fits your recess as well. So a lot of the wooden ones come with these little tapered punches, which is good if you need to get into little areas, but not so good when you are trying to sort of make a larger dome. It speeds things up no end if the punch can be almost as big as the dome, as the recess. That will make everything so much quicker. So the other thing that seems to affect the price of these is the cheaper they are, the less difference in punch size you get, but you can quite cheaply buy a big set or extra. So if something is formed in the same direction, like the little dome on top of this ring, I would say that would be called synclastic. If something is formed in one direction, one plane, like a U shape, I don't know why I'm doing this with my hands, I haven't got any examples and that's a really bad example, but like a horseshoe shape or a tube shape, that would be called uniclastic. And to make forms like this, like when people are trying to make their own tubing, you can get what's called a swage block. So this is my swage block, and again it's got lots of recesses, lots of shapes, and the corresponding punches. And this is the box it's kept in. But because I hardly ever use this, it's quite rare, the tools are still covered in oil. That's something just to be aware of, because I have seen online lots of people complaining about online supplies, like, oh, I spent all this money on a tool and it came covered in oil and, they've not looked after it. The reason it's covered in oil is to stop it from rusting. The dreaded rust. So you should try and keep things with a light coating of oil. A lot of people use rags that have been impregnated with oil to sort of wrap their tools up in, or like I say, you can sort of oil them afterwards. But when they arrive, this is quite normal, and you just need to get a paper towel and give them a quick rub to get the worst of it off. But like I say, if you're not going to be using something for a while, it is good to keep it covered in oil, because then it's less likely to rust while you're storing it. So here we have some spoon stakes, which I use when I'm making little spoons. This is just a little example of an ice cream spoon that I made, because all my full-size spoons were sent off to their new homes. But a stake, in this case a spoon stake, is used for hammering metal over the curve of the stake. But the reason I had the wooden doming block is because it's the same shape, but in this case you hammer the metal down into it. So depending on what I'm trying to do, I might swap between the two types to achieve a similar result. If you want to dome something, or and either it's too big to fit into the domes, or if you want to shape and dome something but you don't want it to be a very, very hard, precise curve, you can use a sandbag. So again, this was my granddad's. Here's an example earring, so it's got a bit of a curve to it, but not anywhere near as defined and sharp as if I'd put it in there. And you just hammer into here, and it's a supportive surface. You can either use the hammers directly, or again you could use punches and hammer down into it, and it just gives you a nice gentle curve. And then lastly, these are my bezel mandrels, so very, very much like a ring mandrel, but just a lot smaller. So when you're making little settings and bezels to go around gemstones, or again if you're making sort of little chain loops or anything that requires this sort of curve, small scale. So this one, oh, focus, it's not going to focus. These two look very similar, but this one's round and this one's oval, hexagonal, got a little square, triangle, all sorts, and these are exactly the same idea, but they're just slightly different shapes, slightly different sizes. These ones also came with a little heart-shaped and star one, but they are not in the mix anymore because I've no idea what I would use little heart-shaped and starred mandrels for. Oh, and I almost forgot. This is my anti-clastic stake. So the point of an anti-clastic stake is for forming anti-clastic curves, which you may have seen before with spinner rings. So an anti-clastic curve is where the metal curves in one direction, but it also curves, again with my hand, don't know what I'm doing, in another direction at the same time. You can see on the side there, there's that slight curve, or the edges are splayed. That's how I normally describe it. Focus on this one. Again, you can see. So it's popular for making spinning rings because by splaying the edges, you can put other ring bands in the middle and sort of spin them and twiddle them, which is quite fun. It's a better angle. So that was a real whirlwind tour. Like I say, you don't need anywhere near that amount of stuff for what we're going to be doing, and just for starting in general. The things that are really good to have are a pair of flat or snipe nose pliers, so the ones that have flat internal jaws, a pair of round nose pliers, but again we've spoken about these in earlier months, so you may already have them. A pair of ring making or half round pliers, because we're going to be making those sort of shapes this month, and certainly next month when we look at things like soldering, these will be invaluable. It would also be great to have a ring mandrel. These are quite good. And then in an ideal world, it would be lovely if you had a doming block. But again, like I say, you can either invest in a steel one, or to get yourself going, you can buy a very cheap little wooden one, or some people actually carve recesses out of their workbench. So they've sort of got a little inbuilt dome that they can hammer stuff into.